Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to Ginkgo for Ginkgo Bioworks 2023 Investor Day. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Megan LeDuc. I am the manager of Investor Day and of investor relations in general. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Before we get started, I just want to give you a few reminders that, one, these presentations today will contain forward-looking statements that involve certain risks and uncertainties. And if you have any questions or want to learn more about those risks and uncertainties, please see our SEC filings. And number two, for any of the folks online that are watching, if you have any questions today, please email those to investors@ginkgobioworks.com, and we will try to get those answered throughout the day. Without further ado, please let me hand it over to our CEO and co-founder, Jason Kelly.
All right, thanks, Megan, and excited to have you all here today. Oh, thank you. Okay, you already got that. Hey, Bear. Okay, all right, so before we get started, we're going to get into the agenda and the plan for today. I did want to start by talking about our subsidiary, Zymergen. There was news this morning that they filed for Chapter 11, so I want to give a little bit of context on that since I have a bunch of you in the room, and I'm sure there'll be a bunch of questions about that later. I will say that we'll be able to talk about this at the Q&A, so you get to ask questions, but first off, you should review our 8K. We put as much information as we could in there. At the time of the Zymergen acquisition, we were aware of the liabilities at Zymergen and that if they couldn't be resolved, that Zymergen would potentially consider a bankruptcy, so that was known to us. Zymergen has been operating as a distinct legal entity since we did the acquisition and has had arm's length agreements with Ginkgo throughout that time. Just as a reminder, we ended last quarter with $1.1 billion in the bank in cash and cash-like securities. So Ginkgo's in a strong position. This is really about Zymergen, the subsidiary. Previously, Ginkgo and Zymergen entered into a non-exclusive license agreement to the intellectual property at Zymergen, so Ginkgo can continue business as usual. So the technology we have been using from Zymergen, we still have access to that. So it's not really a disruption there in terms of our business operations. And then finally, just to help the bankruptcy process along, Ginkgo submitted a bid to purchase the bulk of Zymergen's assets, transfer employees, and assume some liabilities, including one of the leases to the real estate out there. And so I did want to just give a little bit of that context since I figured people would have questions about it before we got into things. And again, feel free, we can talk more about it at Q&A, or if you want to go at the breaks or things like that. Okay? All right. Okay. With no further ado, welcome to Ginkgo Investor Day. I want to highlight what we're hoping you can do today is get a picture of a wider set of the bench here at Ginkgo. You hear a lot from me on earnings calls. I will obviously be here today. I'm very happy to talk to all of you, but you're going to get to hear from Barry Canton, our CTO, Patrick Boyle, our head of codebase, Anna Marie, who, as of today, has expanded role as our head of AI. So you're going to get to hear on a number of our technical fronts. Our Jen Whiff, who heads up our cell engineering, Matt, and Biosecurity. And then in the breakout sessions, you can hear from some of our leaders in certain market areas. So Kevin Madden on industrial biotechnology, Patrick in agricultural biotechnology, and then Mark, our CFO, and Jason Burnt, who heads up our operations, will be in a breakout around ops and finances as well. Okay, and so what I would encourage you all to do, and I have told the team to do this, to leave time at the end of each of their talks to take questions. And so really what I'm hoping is that we can really dig in. You guys should ask deep questions. The point of the Investor Day, from my standpoint, as compared to an earnings call, is there's a lot more opportunity for a two-way conversation here. So please do take advantage of that. And for the folks that are joining us on the webcast, and I know there's a bunch, please do submit questions, and we're happy to work those into the discussion today. And then finally, we're very lucky to be joined by our board chairman, Shyam Sankar, CTO at Palantir. We're going to be doing an AI fireside chat with Barry and Shyam, Dimitri, who heads up our AI on the technical side, and Anna Marie in the afternoon. Okay? All right. So Ginkgo's mission is to make biology easier to engineer. I start a lot of our talks internally at the company with this, almost all of them, as well as our earnings talks. This is a key idea. So this is what I think distinguishes us from most other biotech companies in the industry that might have a mission like to cure a certain disease, or to develop more efficient crops for growers in the Midwest, right? Or animal-free meat, or like there is outside, new fragrances produced with biotechnology. Those are the missions of Ginkgo's customers. Ginkgo does not have a product pipeline. Our mission is to make all of those customers more likely to deliver on their products in biotechnology in their markets. And we have been committed to that for 15 years. I do think this is what makes us unique. It's why our business model looks the way it does. It leads to a lot of the questions and confusion about Ginkgo, because it is kind of unique in the biotech sector that is very product focused, but this is where it comes from and why we have that sort of platform services business model. This is my favorite slide at Ginkgo Bioworks. All right, so this is a subset, not all, of the customers that have come onto our platform, and most of them in more recent years. What I want to highlight is Ginkgo is trying to get people to do R&D differently in the biotech industry. All right, and so if I were a product company and I wanted to, to show that my platform was relevant in, say, RNA therapeutics, I would just start developing my own drug in RNA therapeutics, and the only person I would have convinced that I was any good at doing RNA therapeutics was myself and my investors who are betting on me to develop that drug. That's not how it works for Ginkgo. If I want to convince you that my platform is relevant to a certain type of biotech R&D, I have to go get a customer, which means I have to convince typically the head of R&D of a company that what I have and what you'll get to see on the tour today is either additive or better than what they have in-house for doing that kind of work. If I can't convince them that, the logo does not go on the screen. All right, and so that sets a higher bar for us to validate to all of you that our platform is relevant. And so what I'm really excited about is you can see it in so many different areas, right? So Ginkgo started in industrial biotech, some of our earliest customers like Robertet and Givaudan, the flavor and fragrance industry, now to places like Sumitomo for large-scale chemicals. In agriculture, we work with Corteva, Syngenta, and Bayer, big three ag biotech companies, all customers of Ginkgo. And then you're going to hear a bunch about this today, but our fastest growing area right now is in the biopharma space. And so you're going to get to hear from Kevin and Patrick on industrial and agricultural biotech, and Jen Whiff, who heads up our commercial on biopharma later today. Okay, and so I do want to highlight one of the deals. I've highlighted that Pfizer deal. It's a deal we just signed last week. I think this is something investors should be paying a lot of attention to because this deal is special in a couple ways. First off, obviously, it's a great big biopharma. Like I just said a minute ago, they have large existing in-house infrastructure, so they had to decide to use Ginkgo instead of do this in-house. But importantly, here's a comment from Will, head of biomedicine design at Pfizer, Will Summers. It says, access to Ginkgo's proprietary platform will help enable Pfizer to search for novel and exciting RNA constructs with improved stability. Right? The progress into that biology, we have the potential to create new RNA treatments. So the key here is this is not about manufacturing therapeutics better. It's not R&D to support that. Like, for example, our deal with Novo Nordisk, our historical deal with Biogen, our first deal with Merck. We're all in the area of optimizing R&D, doing R&D to support manufacturing. This is R&D to support drug discovery. All right, and so why is that exciting? That is the biggest R&D market in the biopharma industry. And if you think about the markets, the TAMs that Ginkgo goes after, one of them is the research budget of our customers, so the money they are spending on their labs, on their equipment, on their kits and employees to do research. And then the other is the product revenue that we get a royalty on, okay? In biopharma drug discovery, those are the two, that is the biggest R&D budget market and the biggest product market in biotechnology. So this is a very exciting area for Ginkgo to be getting into. Obviously, this is a deal in RNA. We're hopeful we could get similar deals in gene editors, in protein therapeutics, in cell therapy. And we're working, and you can talk in Jen and ask questions. We're working to add more discovery deals in those areas as well. Does that make sense? You might ask, why didn't you start in this market if it is the biggest market for biotech R&D and for products? And the answer is, 8 years ago when I was doing the first deals in fragrances, there's no way I could have got a deal with Pfizer. Because our platform, as you're going to hear about today on the technology side, improves with scale. So every year, as we build this place bigger, and every time you see me add a new customer, my infrastructure is improving. And so it has taken us the last 8-10 years of scaling this place to be good enough that this comment is you would hear from an R&D leader at a major biopharma company doing drug discovery. Okay, and I will just point out, the platform you see here is used for all of those projects. So we are nailing now the biggest market for biotech R&D on a platform that can do any type of cell engineering R&D. That generality is why I think Ginkgo's a big deal. It's what makes us special. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm not going to belabor this too much, but you are going to get on the tour, you're going to hear from Barry. I encourage you to ask Barry questions about our Foundry. This is our oldest asset that we started developing first at the company. It is a lot of high throughput automation to do the kind of work I did back when I was at the lab bench at MIT, working by hand on engineering cells and creating research data about how genetic designs perform. Here at Ginkgo, you're going to get to walk through about 100,000 square feet of facility here that is automating that lab work so that we generate more research data per dollar than a Pfizer could in-house with their research teams. That data then goes into our code base, which Patrick Boyle heads up, and we keep it. So one of the things Ginkgo does uniquely is when we work out these deals with our customers, we retain the reuse rights to the data for future projects. All right, and that is, again, I think something that's special in the industry, because if you just think of a single product company, they have access to only their data. They don't have access to the data of a bunch of other companies in the industry. But with our code base, that's what we're accumulating. So you can push on Patrick. What do we have access to? What are the things that are really reusable? What can cross over customer to customer when we do this work? And so we've been building that. As the scale of the automation went up, we started to generate, organize, and reuse that code base. And then Anna Marie's gonna be on the tour as well. The thing we're doing with the data, the most recent activity is we announced a partnership with Google Cloud about a month ago, where we're gonna be training AI models, particularly in the protein design space, on all this data. Okay, and that provides a number of things, but we're hopeful even better predictive ability in terms of what biological experiments you want to run, what type of genetic designs are going to be most effective for a customer project. The key thing at Ginkgo, all of these things get better with scale. Okay? The bigger the foundry, the more data you get per dollar, just like a semiconductor fab or an auto plant, like it has a physical scale economic. The more data I have from previous projects, when I do a new program, the more likely I can take something off the shelf and it's relevant from my code base. So like you want to do you want to do the next RNA project, because I've done a lot of work on the Pfizer project, I will have something that's useful to you. And then finally, the scale of compute we do and the amount of data that we can pump into a single foundation model also has a major scale effect. And you're seeing that in the natural language models today. That's why you have basically 3 that are coming to dominate the natural language processing space when it comes to foundation models, because there is a scale effect in AI models. That's the kind of technology Ginkgo likes to bet on. General purpose technology that gets better with scale. We're just not doing it in the tech arena, we are doing it in the biotech arena. Okay, but these all get better every time we sign up a new customer. And so again, I already highlighted, you're gonna get to hear from all these leaders. The only other point I would make is Jason Burnt, who heads up our operations. He's really focusing on, can I use the Foundry and code base, particularly in the areas of industrial biotechnology, to drive massive efficiencies and make that market into a place almost where like we can, when we just get like fees from customers that we are covering the cost of doing that work. That would be ideally where we'd like to get to with that type of project, and that allows us to kind of have as much time as we want to get to royalties. So I think you'll see that type of flywheel spin up first in some of our older areas like microbial engineering, where we have more built out scale. Does that make sense? So talk to Jason about that. Okay, finally, you're going to get to hear from Matt McKnight, who heads up our biosecurity business. The key idea, I think, to take away on biosecurity, and this is work that came out of what we did in COVID around infectious disease monitoring, so think like radar stations looking for viruses, is that this is moving from a public health market to something that looks a lot more like a national security technology market, okay? Because when we go out and interact with our government and foreign governments around this type of technology, we're often interacting with the national security groups who are trying to understand, is something coming to disrupt my country? I need to know about that ahead of time. That's a different kind of solution space than what we've seen in public health, which is often responding to an emergency. Public health is a little more like FEMA, like I'm showing up after the problem. Okay, the national security people, they're about preparedness. They're like, I want to know the missile is coming before it hits us. Okay, that's their job. And so I think that's a real shift in how people have been approaching infectious disease. I think we're building a leading brand in this space. We're again fortunate to have Sham. He's obviously done a lot of work at Palantir and building out. And I think you are seeing a wave around defense technology right now. Companies like Palantir and Anduril leading there. We see an opportunity to lead in biosecurity similarly in defense. And so you're going to hear about that from Matt. Okay, since I have told the other leaders at the company that at the ends of their talks they should leave time to take questions, I'm very happy to take a few questions just right now, and then we're going to go out and take a walk around for some tours, and then come back and do some more talks that folks on the live stream will be able to join. So happy to take a couple questions if anybody has any. Okay, so just so you get a sense of the layout of Ginkgo, this was a building built for World War I, and so it's about 100 years old. Each one of these little squares between the wall behind you and that one over there is an 18,000 square foot box. All right, the Army built this building, so they're all just stamped out. Okay, there are 8 stories of these, and there are 12 across the building. So if you're a biologist, this is a 96 well plate, okay? And you are currently in A4, Barry? Yeah, A4. Okay, you are sitting in A4. We have filled, I think, 7 of these wells along the top of the building. You're going to get to walk through them. And I think one key point I would make before you jump on the tour with the Foundry is to understand that it is an evolving infrastructure. Right, so don't think of it like a chip fab or a car plant where you kind of build it once, that this is the 6 nanometer production node at Intel and we'll build a new one in 3 years. What goes on in these rooms turns over on probably a couple year time scale. And so you'll see new technologies coming in all the time. And so you'll kind of get to see even different epics of what we had in the Foundry on the tour. So excited to have you all join us for the tour and looking forward to the day and welcome to Investor Day here at Ginkgo. Thanks.